Narita Airport has never had an easy life. It opened in 1978 after a controversial history with many protesters objecting to the land grab by the Japanese government. When it did open, it was surrounded by guard towers and several layers of fencing. You couldn't enter the airport without a passport or an ID, and police checked everybody's papers who entered the airport. Even when you did get into the airport, it wasn't the most pleasant place to be. If you were arriving from overseas, you had to take a 60-kilometer trip by bus or taxi into central Tokyo. The terminal building was pretty basic. It wasn't a good place to hang around. Terminal 2 opened in 1992, 30 years ago, and the second runway opened in 2002. But Narita was originally meant to have 5 runways and was expecting to be a massive hub for various airlines. Terminal 3 opened in 2015 for low-cost carriers, and the terminal buildings were spruced up to become pleasant places to hang around in, with many shops, cafes and restaurants. Narita is now a very acceptable, quite presentable airport. The problem now is it doesn't have any passengers. In 2019, 44 million passengers passed through Narita Airport. In August 2020, the number of passengers had dropped from 44 million to just over 10 million, and this number dropped to 5.2 million in 2021. And most of the passengers who did use the airport were on domestic flights, not on international flights. While the number of aircraft movements remained fairly high, the number of passengers on international flights had dropped dramatically, with many flights almost empty. As a result, the airport has become a ghost town. No passengers, shops closed, empty buses, empty planes. There now seems to be more police than passengers. Before COVID, Japan was seeing 40 million tourists a year. Now, in 2022, there are none. Tourists are not allowed in. And the Japanese government hasn't said when they will be allowed in. They have recently decided to allow in more students and business people, but tourists aren't on the agenda at the moment, which means that Narita will continue to be a ghost town full of empty shops and empty check-in desks, guarded by unemployed policemen and a sole robot security dog. Businesses around the airport have also failed. Car parks are empty or closed down. Hotels are empty, or, if they're lucky, full of passengers who have been forced into quarantine. Japan's entry requirements are still very strict compared with the rest of the Western world. Billboards and video screens advertise a country that no one can enjoy because they can't enter that country. The only part of the airport with any kind of life is Terminal 3, which is for the low-cost carriers, but most of these are doing domestic flights, and the domestic travel business is still relatively healthy. For international travel, no one knows when things will change. Until that time, Narita will remain a ghost town, patrolled by a robot security dog.
Patrolling. 巡回警戒中。 수색 경비 중입니다.巡回警備中です. Patrolling.巡回警戒中. 수색 경비 중입니다.巡回警備中です.